You lose power every time you react. Every time you explain, defend, or chase, you hand over your control. The strongest people in the world aren't the loudest. They're the calm ones, the ones who wait, the ones who choose when to respond and when not to. This is your turning point. This audiobook will teach you how to stop reacting and start commanding, because restraint is not weakness, it's strategy, it's power disguised as silence. Control is not about pretending you don't feel. It's about deciding what those feelings serve. Restraint doesn't mean you've killed your fire. It means you've learned how to aim it. This is where power begins, right here, with command. You've been told to stay calm your whole life, as if calmness means weakness, as if composure means you've lost the fight. That's wrong. Calmness is not surrender. It's control. It's awareness turned into power. You can't suppress your emotions. They're energy. You can only choose where that energy goes. The difference between the man who destroys himself and the man who leads others is one thing: direction. One reacts, one commands. You decide which one you'll be. Pause for a moment and think. How many times have you ruined something not because of what happened, but because of how you reacted? A text message, a tone, a look. You felt disrespected, so you exploded. You felt ignored, so you begged for attention. You felt challenged, so you fought back impulsively and lost the war trying to win the battle. That's not control. That's chaos wearing pride as armor. Here's the truth. You don't rise when you react. You rise when you choose. Every time you pause before responding, you prove to yourself, I'm in command here. That's the first rule of real power. Control is not suppression, it's command. Command means deliberate direction. Think about elite negotiators. When the room gets tense, they don't shout. They wait. They watch. They listen for what's not being said. They let silence do the heavy lifting, because they understand, whoever breaks silence first usually breaks position. That's not suppression, that's strategy. They're not avoiding emotion, they're guiding it. Or think about martial artists. The beginner flails, throwing punches out of panic. The master moves slowly, calmly. Every motion is deliberate. Every movement comes from control, not reaction. Because mastery is measured in precision, not in panic. And you need to start living the same way. Stop trying to kill your emotions. That's not the goal. You need to learn to command them. You need to feel anger and say, good, energy. Feel fear and say, perfect, information. Feel temptation and say, excellent, a test. That's the mindset of command. Command your energy, don't waste it. Every time you argue online, every time you explain yourself to someone who isn't listening, every time you chase validation, you lose energy. And what happens when your energy is gone? You can't lead, you can't build, you can't decide. You become reactive, and the reactive person always belongs to someone else. The world loves reactive people because they're predictable. They can be provoked, manipulated, sold to, and controlled. All it takes is a headline, a comment, a trigger. But the world doesn't know what to do with a calm person. The calm one terrifies people, because calmness means you can't be manipulated, you can't be baited, you can't be rushed. That's power. That's control. So from this moment, start noticing the moments you give away your energy. When you argue about something you can't change, when you explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, when you let your emotions dictate your tone, your timing, your decisions. That's energy leaking out of your command. You need to become aware of it and stop it. Command your energy, don't waste it. Say it again. Command your energy, don't waste it. You have a choice. In every moment of pressure, you have a choice. The world will tell you that's just who you are, but that's a lie told by the undisciplined. You are not your reactions, you are your responses. That's the key. When something angers you, pause. When someone disrespects you, pause. When a situation shocks you, pause. Because that pause is not weakness. That pause is where strength lives. That pause is where command is born. Every master in every craft lives inside that pause. They act after the storm inside has cleared. They don't let their impulses decide for them, and neither can you. You have to train that pause like a muscle, daily, repeatedly. Start with the small things, the driver who cuts you off, the text that annoys you, the meeting that frustrates you. Pause, breathe, delay, then decide. That's the discipline that separates leaders from reactors. You don't need their permission. You don't need the world to understand your calm. You don't need applause for your restraint. You don't need to defend every choice or explain every silence. Your composure is not for them, it's for you. It's your boundary, it's your anchor. People will mistake your calmness for indifference. Let them. They will mistake your patience for weakness. Let them. They will mistake your silence for uncertainty. Let them. Because while they're busy guessing, you're busy mastering yourself. That's command. Let me make this clear. Control is not the absence of emotion. It's the mastery of motion. It's learning to use your feelings as information, not instruction. It's knowing that you can feel something without obeying it. It's knowing that emotion is fuel, not fire. When you reach that level, your life stops feeling chaotic. You stop living on other people's timelines. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't qualified to understand you. And something powerful happens. You begin to lead. Because leadership starts within. You can't lead others until you can lead your impulses. That's the foundation of command. You have to practice this every single day. This isn't about perfection, it's about direction. Every pause you master adds to your strength. Every reaction you resist builds your command. And one day, someone will test you, and you'll feel that surge of emotion. But instead of reacting, you'll smile, because you'll realize something profound. They can't pull you anymore. You've taken back the strings. That's real control. That's real command. You've learned the first law of restraint. Control is not suppression, it's command. You've learned that you don't kill your emotions, you train them. You've learned that every pause, every silence, every withheld reaction compounds into power. That's the foundation of everything that follows. You've mastered your impulses. Now it's time to face the next battlefield, your reactions. We live in a world addicted to speed. Fast opinions, fast responses, fast anger. Everyone wants to be the first to speak, the first to post, the first to react. But here's the truth. Reaction is the enemy of control. The faster you react, the less power you have. Instant reaction feels like strength, but it's not strength. It's surrender. It's your emotions hijacking your mind. It's your ego taking the wheel before wisdom even wakes up. Every impulsive reaction is a withdrawal from your bank of power. You spend energy, you spend credibility, you spend control. And for what? To prove something that never needed to be proven. You need to understand this. The world is built to make you react. Every notification, every headline, every argument, every insult, it's all bait. They want your attention. They want your energy. They want you to respond before you think. But the more you react, the more predictable you become. And the more predictable you are, the easier you are to control. That's the trap. Instant reaction feels like power, but it's dependence. Dependence on emotion, dependence on attention, dependence on the approval or disapproval of others. The moment you pause, you break the trap. You flip the dynamic. Now you are in command. Because restraint is the ultimate rebellion. Pause before you speak. Breathe before you break. Say it again. Pause before you speak. Breathe before you break. That's your training command. Every soldier knows it. Every surgeon lives by it. Every chess master depends on it. The best soldiers don't shoot first. They assess. They measure the terrain. They calculate the wind. They anticipate the unseen. Because one reckless move can cost the mission or a life. In battle, reaction gets you killed. Precision keeps you alive. The best surgeons don't rush under pressure. Their calmness is not emotionless, it's focused. They know that one shaky hand, one impulsive cut, and everything collapses. So they breathe, they slow down, they move deliberately, not reactively. The best chess masters don't panic when the opponent makes a bold move. They don't slam pieces in anger or move from fear. They observe. They see 10 steps ahead. Because reaction looks at the next move, but command looks at the whole board. That's the secret. Those who pause win. Those who rush lose. Every reaction costs you energy. Every pause earns you leverage. That's the math of mastery. The moment you feel triggered, the body floods with chemicals, adrenaline, cortisol, tension. It's a storm. If you act during the storm, you act blind. You can't see clearly. You can't think clearly. But if you breathe, the storm passes. Your clarity returns. Your intelligence returns. And with that clarity, you take back power. You must train this discipline, not once, daily. You train it in small moments because small moments become patterns. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Don't react. A coworker interrupts you. Don't snap. Someone sends a rude message. Don't reply right away. Pause, breathe, think, then act, if action is even needed. That pause is your weapon. That pause is your power. You have a choice, always. You can react like everyone else, fast, loud, emotional. Or you can pause and become unshakable. You don't owe anyone an instant response. Not a text, not a comment, not a confrontation. Silence is an answer. Delay is an answer. Stillness is an answer. That's what powerful people understand. Your timing is your territory. Don't give it away. When you control your timing, you control the tempo. When you control the tempo, you control the tone. And when you control the tone, you control the outcome. That's the difference between reacting and commanding. Reacting is impulsive. Commanding is intentional. It's not about emotion. It's about discipline. That's the key. Ask yourself this: why do you react so fast? Is it fear of missing out? Fear of being misunderstood? Fear of not being seen? That's the trap. Your ego convinces you that speed equals significance. But the truth is, speed without thought is self-sabotage. You don't need to prove that you care by reacting instantly. You prove that you care by responding effectively. You don't need to defend every opinion. You don't need to chase every insult. You don't need to clarify your worth every time someone doubts it. The calm person wins. Because calmness confuses the world. The world expects reaction. It feeds on chaos. When you refuse to react, you become unpredictable. When you become unpredictable, you become powerful. You want to be respected? Don't react. You want to be trusted? Don't react. You want to be unbreakable? Don't react. Pause before you speak. Breathe before you break. Every time you do, you reclaim a piece of yourself, a piece of your energy, a piece of your focus. Reactions divide you. Command unites you. And when your mind and emotions move in unity, you become unstoppable. Here's what you can start doing right now. Delay your responses. Even 5 seconds of silence can save you from 5 hours of regret. Slow your breathing. When the body calms, the mind follows. Ask yourself one question before reacting. Will this response move me forward or just prove a point? That one question is enough to shift your life's trajectory. Because life is a series of reactions until you make it a series of choices. And the difference between reaction and choice is everything. You have a choice. You always do. You can rush like everyone else, or you can lead yourself. You can chase emotional satisfaction, or you can build emotional discipline. You can waste your energy reacting, or you can store it, strengthen it, and redirect it toward your goals. Every reaction you resist makes you stronger. Every pause makes you sharper. Every deep breath makes you harder to manipulate. That's the essence of command. The pause is not empty, it's full of power. Remember this: power moves slowly, chaos moves fast. You must decide which one you'll embody. You've just seen the truth. That instant reaction is a trap. The world will push you to speed up, but mastery demands you slow down. Pause before you speak, breathe before you break. That's how you turn impulse into power. That's how you turn chaos into control. You've learned to delay your reaction. Now it's time to confront the deeper layer, your ego. Because reaction doesn't just come from emotion, it comes from the need to be seen. The loudest voice in your mind isn't always your truth. Most of the time, it's your ego whispering one command: be seen. That whisper destroys restraint. It demands reaction. It demands validation. Every time you rush to prove, defend, or display, your ego wins and your power fades. That's the trap of modern life. The need to be seen is the enemy of strength. You don't need to be seen to be strong. You don't need applause to have power. Real power grows in silence. It matures in the dark, without witnesses. But your ego hates that. Your ego wants attention. It wants recognition. It wants proof that it matters. And when you feed it, you lose control. The need to prove is the silent destroyer of restraint. Think about it. How often do you do things not because they're right, but because you want to be right? How often do you respond not because it's wise, but because you want to win? That's the ego in disguise. You post something online, someone disagrees, and your first instinct is to fire back. Not because it's useful, but because it feels personal. Because your ego can't stand being unseen, unacknowledged, or challenged. Social media has trained your ego like a dog. It drools for likes. It barks at disagreement. Every scroll, every click, every seen notification feeds the illusion that visibility equals value. But here's the truth. Validation is not value. Attention is not authority. Noise is not power. Power grows in the unseen, the quiet, the unprovoked. That's the discipline. To act from conviction, not from craving. To live from purpose, not performance. You don't need to be seen to be strong. Say it out loud. Let it hit deeper each time. Because everything around you is designed to make you forget it. Our culture worships exposure. If it's not posted, it didn't happen. If it's not liked, it's not valuable. If it's not noticed, it's not enough. That's a lie. You are not a brand. You are not a broadcast. You are a being. The moment you understand that, your peace returns. You stop chasing visibility. You start building power, quietly, deliberately, patiently. The strongest people don't announce their strength. They reveal it when necessary. The most dangerous warriors move silently. The most disciplined minds say the least. That's not modesty. That's mastery. Your ego is addicted to being seen because it's afraid of being ignored. It equates silence with insignificance. It thinks invisibility means weakness. But that's not true. That's insecurity.
The ego thrives on reaction. It feeds on friction. It loves drama because drama keeps it alive. When you stop reacting, your ego starves. And when your ego starves, you meet your real self, the one that doesn't need attention to exist. That's where peace begins. You must train yourself to sit in that quiet. It will feel uncomfortable at first. You'll feel invisible, forgotten, irrelevant. But that's just the detox of ego leaving your system. And when it leaves, what's left behind is focus, calm, command. You have a choice. You can feed your ego or feed your discipline, but you can't do both. Ego says, prove yourself. Discipline says, improve yourself. Ego screams for recognition. Discipline builds results in silence. That's the difference. It's not about being noticed. It's about becoming undeniable. Let your results speak. Let your consistency speak. Let your silence speak. The world doesn't need another person shouting for validation. It needs more people who can hold their ground without noise. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval to feel valuable. You don't need their likes to know your direction is right. You don't need their applause to stay disciplined. When you depend on external validation, you become emotionally enslaved. They pull your strings with praise and criticism. When they clap, you rise. When they ignore you, you fall. That's not power. That's captivity. Freedom begins when you stop needing permission to stay consistent. Freedom begins when you no longer chase validation for what you already know is right. Freedom begins when your peace doesn't depend on their attention. That's the essence of restraint. You don't act to be seen, you act because it aligns with your command. Stop broadcasting, start becoming. You want power? Withdraw from the noise. Let them post, let them argue, let them perform. You stay still. You build in silence. You create in darkness. Because when you emerge, you won't need to announce it. Your presence will speak louder than any performance ever could. The tree doesn't brag about growing. The mountain doesn't post about standing tall. They just are. And that's enough. Be like that. Still, rooted, immovable. You don't need to be seen to be strong. You need to be steady. Real-world application. Here's how you start. Stop reacting publicly. When provoked, don't explain, don't defend. Let silence work for you. Create privately. Build projects, habits, and growth away from the spotlight. Let your results announce themselves. Detach from validation. Every time you crave attention, remind yourself, validation is a drug. I'm quitting. The moment you stop chasing validation, you start attracting respect. Because the world respects those who don't need their approval. Every time you resist the urge to prove, you strengthen your power. Every time you choose silence over spectacle, you grow. Every time you let results speak instead of words, you win. Because power doesn't shout, it whispers. Confidence doesn't announce, it acts. You don't need to be seen to be strong. You don't need to react to be respected. You don't need to prove to be powerful. That's the discipline of restraint. That's how you move from ego to command. You've now stripped away one of the ego's biggest lies, the belief that visibility equals value. You've learned that unseen work builds unshakable strength, that silence builds reputation, that privacy builds power. You've silenced the ego that demanded to be seen. Now it's time to refine the silence itself and discover the weapon hidden inside it.
Silence intimidates. Silence disorients. Silence forces truth out of others. Most people fear silence because it exposes them. It shows their insecurity. They rush to fill it with noise, with justification, with weakness. But the strong understand that silence is not absence. Silence is presence multiplied.
When you master silence, you master control. You own the tempo of the room. You dictate the rhythm of the exchange. You let others reveal themselves while you remain unshaken. That's the power of restraint. That's the power of quiet dominance. Think about Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with absolute authority who rarely spoke impulsively. He led with thought, not volume. When others reacted with anger or emotion, he responded with stillness. His silence wasn't weakness. It was composure sharpened into strategy. Or Sun Tzu, who wrote The Art of War. He said, "Appear weak when you are strong." Silence was his weapon. He knew that when your enemy doesn't know what you're thinking, they start fighting shadows in their own mind. Even in the modern world, look at great CEOs, negotiators, and leaders. The best ones talk less and listen more. They pause. They let silence stretch. And in that silence, others begin to confess, to explain, to overextend. The quiet one always wins because they force others to play their hand first. That's the lesson. When you talk less, you see more. You must understand, silence is not passive. It's not retreat. It's power under control. When you hold silence, you're saying, "I don't need to rush." You're saying, "I don't need your validation." You're saying, "I'm not reacting. I'm calculating." That's the key. You don't need to be loud to be effective. You don't need to prove your strength through argument, because strength doesn't argue. It decides. The world has conditioned you to believe the opposite, that to win, you must speak, you must explain, you must respond. But that's noise, that's reaction, and reaction is weakness. You have a choice. You can fill every silence with fear, or you can hold your silence like a weapon, sharpened, disciplined, deliberate. Here's the truth. Silence exposes emotional immaturity. People who cannot stand stillness, who cannot bear silence, are at war with themselves. They need noise to distract them from their lack of control. The disciplined mind, however, sits comfortably in silence. It doesn't chase attention. It doesn't seek reassurance. It doesn't flinch when unacknowledged. Because silence to the disciplined is not emptiness, it's energy gathering. When you stay silent, you conserve power. You collect data. You force the world to speak first. You make others reveal their motives, their fears, their weaknesses, all while you stay centered. Remember this. Silence doesn't make you smaller. It makes you unpredictable. And unpredictability is strength. In business, this is called the power of the pause. In combat, it's called patience. In leadership, it's called composure. Different words, same principle. You pause before you act. You observe before you respond. You let the noise burn itself out. And then, when you finally do speak, it lands like a hammer, because your words were earned through discipline, not impulse. That's how legends lead. That's how thinkers move. That's how you regain your power in a world addicted to reaction. Here's what you must do. When you feel provoked, pause. When someone disrespects you, don't respond instantly. When you want to explain yourself, don't. When you want to prove them wrong, let silence do it for you. Your restraint will frustrate the shallow. It will confuse the emotional, but it will elevate you because restraint is mastery. Silence is control. You don't need their permission to stay silent. You don't need to defend your truth. You don't need to explain your value. You already know who you are, and that's enough. Imagine this, a heated argument, voices raised, everyone desperate to have the last word. Now picture one person, calm, quiet, unmoved. Everyone notices, everyone feels it. That stillness commands the room more than shouting ever could. Because when you control your tongue, you control the energy of the entire environment. That's the real dominance, the ability to remain calm when chaos surrounds you. That's what Marcus Aurelius understood. That's what Sun Tzu practiced. That's what modern masters execute every day. They turn silence into strategy. They use stillness as a blade sharper than any word. You must train this every day. When someone challenges you, don't rush. When someone provokes you online, scroll past. When your ego screams to reply, breathe. You win every time you delay reaction. You gain control every time you choose quiet over chaos. Silence is not suppression, it's selection. You are selecting what deserves your energy and what doesn't. That's the discipline. That's the transformation. Silence intimidates, it disorients, it reveals. And the longer you hold it, the more powerful you become. So start practicing today. Speak only when it adds value. Respond only when it's strategic. Guard your words like gold, because every unnecessary word devalues your presence. The strong understand. It's not about being loud. It's about being deliberate. It's not about being heard. It's about being remembered. And nothing is more unforgettable than composure under fire. Silence is your armor. Silence is your strategy. Silence is your advantage. You've learned how to use silence as a weapon, as a tool of power and patience. Now let's move to the next level, because power without clarity is directionless. You've mastered restraint in speech. Now it's time to master the language of thought itself.
Anger is not your enemy. Anger is your raw power, untamed, unfocused, and waiting to be mastered. The world told you to suppress it, to hide it, to bury it under politeness and smiles. But suppression is not control. Suppression is self-destruction delayed. What you bury rots. What you face transforms. Emotions are not the problem. Mismanagement is. You were never meant to be emotionless. You were meant to be emotionally disciplined. That's the key. Because anger, when mastered, becomes authority. It becomes energy channeled into purpose. It becomes the fire that forges your next level. But when left untrained, it burns everything in your path. Let's be real, you felt it. That surge in your chest when someone disrespects you. That heat in your stomach when someone doubts you. That shaking in your hands when someone crosses the line. That's not weakness, that's potential. But what you do next, that's where the weak and the strong separate. The weak react. The strong redirect. The weak explode. The strong transmute. That's emotional alchemy, turning raw reaction into refined response, turning chaos into clarity. Feel deeply, act wisely. That's the law. Think about it. Every emotion carries energy. Energy is neither good nor bad. It's neutral. What matters is where you send it. When anger arises, it's a signal, a messenger. It's saying something matters to you. Something feels unjust. Something needs change. But instead of listening, you've been taught to either explode or suppress. Both paths lead to the same destination, loss of control. You have a choice. You can let anger own you, or you can own your anger. Let's talk about transformation, how to turn anger into authority. Step 1. Pause. Before you act, before you speak, before you type, before you even move, pause. In that pause, you take back control. That's where you separate instinct from intelligence. That's where you shift from emotion-driven to principle-driven. Feel it fully, but don't move yet. Let the energy settle. Let it cool just enough to become fuel, not fire. Step 2. Breathe and observe. You don't run from emotion, you witness it. You ask, what is this anger showing me? Maybe it's showing you disrespect you've allowed. Maybe it's revealing standards you've ignored. Maybe it's teaching you where your boundaries need reinforcement. You learn from it. That's wisdom. Step 3. Redirect the energy. Anger is energy, so move it somewhere useful.
Go train, go write, go build, go create, go prove something that silence can't. Turn what they did into momentum. Turn insult into intensity. Turn frustration into focus. You don't need to scream. You need to build. Because true power is not about reacting. It's about reconstructing. Real warriors don't waste energy on emotional outbursts. They refine it into purpose. A soldier feels fear, but channels it into alertness. A leader feels pressure, but turns it into composure. A thinker feels anger, but transforms it into resolve. That's emotional alchemy. That's mastery. You don't kill emotion, you guide it. You educate it. You own it. Remember this. Emotion is the signal. Discipline is the filter. Wisdom is the output. In ancient philosophy, alchemy was about turning lead into gold. In modern mastery, emotional alchemy is about pain into power. You take the lead, the heavy, reactive, impulsive part of you, and refine it through awareness and patience. And what remains? Gold, focus, authority. The moment you stop reacting, you start ruling. Because authority doesn't come from dominance over others. It comes from dominance over yourself. You don't need to raise your voice to command. You just need to control your tone, your timing, your presence. That's real power. Power that others feel without you forcing it. Let's break this down practically. When someone disrespects you, don't rush to respond. Let their words echo in silence. Let your stillness disturb them. When life frustrates you, don't rant, work. Let your execution speak louder than your reaction ever could. When you feel the storm rising inside you, remember, the storm is not you. It's passing through you. Your job is not to fight the storm, it's to navigate it. The strong are not those who never feel anger. The strong are those who never let anger choose their next move. That's the key. Every time you pause, every time you breathe, every time you redirect, you are rewiring your mind. You are teaching yourself to lead, not follow impulse. You are showing yourself that emotion is a tool, not a trap. You are reclaiming control, one reaction at a time. You don't need to numb your emotions, you need to understand them. You don't need to silence your anger, you need to refine it. You don't need to be calm all the time, you need to be conscious in the chaos. Feel deeply, act wisely. Because wisdom without feeling is cold, and feeling without wisdom is chaos. Balance them, and you become unstoppable. Here's the truth. Most people are slaves to their moods. Their energy rises and falls with the world around them. They are emotionally reactive, not strategically responsive. But you're not most people. You are training to become unshakable. You are learning to see emotion as signal, not sentence. You are learning to use pain as data, not as destiny. That's emotional alchemy, the art of using what hurts you to help you. Every time you channel your emotions into purpose, you strengthen the bridge between chaos and command. That's where leaders are born. That's where warriors rise. That's where calm becomes contagious. So remember this. You don't need to fear your anger. You need to refine it. You don't need to bury your feelings. You need to educate them. You don't need to prove your control. You need to embody it. That's mastery. Feel deeply, act wisely. That's the mantra. That's the practice. That's the path. Because power is not the absence of emotion, it's emotion under command. You've learned how to turn your inner fire into authority. Now, let's take it further. You've mastered your emotions. Now let's talk about the one skill that separates great minds from restless ones.
Every unnecessary explanation weakens your position. Every time you justify yourself, you trade power for approval. And every time you try to convince people to understand you, you forget who you really are. You don't owe everyone your reasons. You owe yourself your results. That's the key. In a world addicted to noise, where everyone's talking, posting, arguing, and proving, restraint becomes your greatest weapon. Because power doesn't explain itself, power acts. Commanders don't justify, they move. Leaders don't debate their direction, they demonstrate it. Masters don't convince, they create. You have to decide which one you'll be, the one who talks about power or the one who lives it. Here's the truth. The more you explain, the more uncertain you sound. When you need people to get it, you're no longer leading, you're begging for alignment. Explanations are often disguised insecurity. You over-explain when you fear misunderstanding. You defend yourself when you crave validation. You justify when you doubt your own conviction. But strength doesn't seek understanding, it assumes clarity within. You don't need their permission. You don't need their agreement. You don't even need their applause. You just need discipline. Because the one who acts with certainty commands attention without words. Look around. The most powerful people in the world, the ones who truly shift culture, command rooms, lead nations, or change industries, rarely explain themselves. They don't announce every plan, they execute. They don't argue for their vision, they embody it. They don't react to criticism, they outlast it. Think of it, Marcus Aurelius didn't justify his philosophy, he lived it. Steve Jobs didn't explain innovation, he showed it. A great general doesn't explain the strategy before the battle, he proves it through victory. That's the pattern. Power moves in silence. Weakness announces its intentions. So, let's make it practical. You're in a disagreement. You feel misunderstood. You want to explain yourself, to make them see your side. But pause. Ask yourself, why? Is it because you believe your truth needs proof? Or is it because you want to feel accepted, validated, and liked? If it's the latter, you're not leading, you're pleading. You have a choice. You can seek understanding, or you can command respect. You rarely get both. In professional life, this lesson is gold. Think about leaders in meetings. The ones who talk the most usually have the least control. The ones who sit quietly, who choose words like weapons, who don't rush to fill the silence, they hold the room. Because silence forces people to lean in. Explanation pushes them away. You want people to follow your example, not your excuses. You want to be the one they watch, not the one they debate. Stop trying to explain your plan. Start executing it so clearly that it becomes undeniable. That's command. And here's what most people never understand. Explanations drain energy. Every time you justify yourself, you split your focus. Half of your mind stays in the work, the other half wanders into doubt. You trade creation for conversation. You trade clarity for confusion. You don't need to explain why you're doing something differently. You just need to do it differently. Because when results speak, explanations die on their own. That's the key. Let's talk about social energy. You spend hours trying to make people get you, your vision, your passion, your goals, but here's the truth, most of them can't. Not because they don't care, but because they're not meant to. They don't see what you see, they don't feel what you feel, they don't carry your mission. And that's okay. You're not supposed to be understood by everyone. You're supposed to be focused. The more you chase understanding, the further you drift from execution. Because leaders are not understood, they are observed. They don't argue for credibility, they embody credibility. Here's the discipline. Next time you're tempted to explain yourself, stop. Let your silence create weight. Let your consistency do the talking. Let your results end the conversation. Because explanation is noise. Execution is music. You want to be noise resistant. You want to become someone whose actions carry such force that no words are needed. That's authority. You might be thinking, but won't people misunderstand me? Yes, they will. They'll misinterpret your motives. They'll question your choices. They'll doubt your path.
And that's fine, because when you stop living for their understanding, you start living from your conviction. You have a choice. You can either fight for clarity in their minds, or you can live with clarity in your own. You can't do both. That's the real power, when you no longer need people to see you a certain way. So how do you live this truth daily? You start small. When someone challenges your decision, pause. Don't explain. Just move. When someone mocks your ambition, don't defend. Keep building. When someone misunderstands your silence, let them. They're revealing their own noise level, not your lack of clarity. Over time, people stop questioning you. They start observing you, and eventually, they start following you. Because real power never demands belief, it earns it. You don't owe everyone your reasons. You don't need to narrate your discipline. You don't need to post your progress. You just be it. Consistently, quietly, relentlessly. That's how you move from explanation to demonstration, from talking to commanding, from noise to authority. Remember, commanders act, they don't justify. Leaders demonstrate, they don't defend. Because when you truly know what you're doing and why, explanation becomes unnecessary. Your work becomes your message. Your stillness becomes your confidence. Your silence becomes your presence. And that's the kind of presence that cannot be ignored. So, here's your challenge. For the next week, explain nothing. When someone asks why, say less. When someone doubts you, stay calm. When someone provokes you, build quietly. Let your silence become your proof. Let your results become your language. Let your restraint become your signature. That's command. You've learned to stop explaining. Now it's time to master another form of invisible strength, the art of focus that builds unbreakable momentum.
You talk too much. You reveal too much. You give too much of yourself away, your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions. And then you wonder why you feel drained, dismissed, and misunderstood. Every time you over-explain, you dilute your impact. Every time you overshare, you lose your mystery. Every time you overreact, you surrender control. Conserve your mystery. That's the key. Because power isn't found in exposure, it's found in restraint. In a world that rewards noise, silence has become rare. And rarity is always valuable. Here's the truth. People who can't hold their emotions can't hold their power. You see it every day. Someone gets triggered, they rant online. Someone feels left out, they overshare for attention. Someone feels unseen, they talk louder, longer, hoping someone will finally listen. But what they don't realize is this. The more you express without strategy, the more invisible you become. Noise doesn't create respect, it creates fatigue. You think you're being authentic, but what you're really doing is leaking power. Understand this. Restraint is not suppression, it's selection. It's knowing what deserves expression and what deserves silence. You don't have to share every thought that crosses your mind. You don't have to express every emotion that hits your chest. You don't have to react to every comment that stirs your ego. You have a choice, always. Because it's not about being loud, it's about being intentional. When you choose when to speak, when to reveal, when to move, your words begin to carry weight. And the world listens differently. That's the secret few understand. Mystery magnifies presence. Let's talk psychology for a moment. The human brain is wired to chase dopamine, the chemical reward of being seen or being heard. That's why emotional venting feels good in the moment. It gives you temporary relief, but long-term weakness. You feel lighter, yes, but you've just handed your emotional energy to the world for free. You've spent your power on expression instead of direction. That's the trap. Modern culture calls it being real, but too much real becomes reckless. Too much openness invites manipulation. Too much honesty with the wrong people becomes ammunition. You have to guard your essence the way a king guards his crown. You are not supposed to be an open book. You are supposed to be a fortress with a gate. That's the key difference between connection and exposure. Think of it like this.
Every word you speak either strengthens or weakens your position. Every emotion you show either earns respect or invites intrusion. The wise know when to hold back. The foolish mistake transparency for strength. You don't need to perform your pain for others to care. You don't need to broadcast your struggle to prove authenticity. You don't need to announce your plans to feel significant. You need to build silently. You need to move intentionally. You need to let curiosity work for you. Because when people don't know everything, they start to wonder. And when they wonder, you hold attention. Conserve your mystery. In real life, look at those who dominate quietly. They don't share every move they make. They don't reveal every emotion they feel. They don't react to every rumor or insult. They let people guess. They let time prove their truth. They let results speak louder than their mouth ever could. That's not arrogance. That's architecture. That's how power is built, brick by silent brick. You can't be mysterious if you're constantly narrating your life. You can't be respected if you're constantly defending yourself. You can't be followed if you're constantly explaining yourself. Control the flow of your energy. Protect the weight of your words. Guard the access to your emotions. That's emotional discipline. That's restraint in motion. Here's something to remember. Mystery is not manipulation. It's mastery. You're not withholding truth to deceive. You're managing truth to direct. It's about self-command, the ability to decide not everything deserves expression. Because every great leader, artist, or thinker understands this law. When you give the world everything, you become ordinary. When you hold something back, you become magnetic. That's why restraint feels powerful, because it is. Every pause builds anticipation. Every silence sharpens attention. Every withheld detail adds gravity to your presence. You don't need to prove who you are. You need to make them feel who you are. Through stillness, through consistency, through calm. That's authority. Let's make this real. When you're angry, don't post. When you're sad, don't broadcast. When you're excited, don't reveal the plan too soon. Hold. Breathe. Observe. Ask yourself, is this expression strategic or emotional? If it's strategic, it builds power. If it's emotional, it leaks power. You have to train that muscle, the pause before the post, the breath before the reply, the silence before the reaction. Because every time you choose silence over outburst, you win twice, once over the moment and once over yourself. That's the real victory. You don't need to be a mystery to others just to seem impressive. You need to be a mystery because your energy deserves protection. People can't attack what they can't predict. They can't manipulate what they can't read. They can't control what they can't access. That's why composure is terrifying to the reactive. Your calm makes them question their chaos. Your silence makes them confront their noise. And that's when you begin to hold psychological dominance, not through aggression, but through stillness. It's not about being louder, it's about lower frequency, grounded, stable, unbothered. Because restraint speaks volumes without making a sound. Remember this: the moment you feel the urge to prove, pause. The moment you feel the urge to vent, reflect. The moment you feel the urge to overshare, wait. Because the less you give away, the more others lean in. The more you withhold, the more others value what you do reveal. That's not game playing. That's emotional intelligence in action. Conserve your mystery. Protect your essence. Control your output. Because the more you master the art of withholding, the more the world listens when you finally speak. That's restraint at its highest level. The ability to hold your emotions, your plans, and your power until the moment of purpose. That's what makes you magnetic. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you unforgettable. So stop over-talking. Stop oversharing. Stop overreacting. Your silence is your signal. Your calm is your weapon. Your restraint is your crown. And when you wear it, the world takes notice. You've learned to conserve your mystery. Now it's time to talk about what happens when you channel that inner stillness into your external world.
Patience is not waiting. It's preparation. Don't confuse the two. Waiting is passive. Patience is power under control. The impatient chase speed. The disciplined chase mastery. That's the difference between the loud and the legendary. While others rush, you prepare. While they react, you rise. That's the key. You've been taught that patience means doing nothing. You've been told that patience is weakness. You've been conditioned to believe that success belongs to the fastest. Wrong. Success belongs to the longest lasting, to those who can breathe through the storm and stay still while the world burns, to those who understand that time rewards those who respect it. You don't need to move fast, you need to move right. Because movement without direction is chaos, and chaos is the killer of greatness. Look back through history. Every great leader, every empire builder, every master of self, they all had one weapon in common: patience. Alexander waited years before striking Persia. Napoleon spent nights planning while his rivals acted out of ego. Lincoln endured ridicule and doubt for years before history called him great. They didn't rush, they prepared. And when the moment came, they were unstoppable, not because they moved quickly, but because they had already done the work when nobody was watching. Patience isn't about sitting still. It's about sharpening your blade in silence. Let's talk about you. You get frustrated when things don't move fast enough. You want the results today, the respect tomorrow, the reward immediately. You scroll through success stories and wonder why it's taking so long for yours to appear. That's the disease of modern ambition, impatient desire. You want to harvest before you've planted enough seeds. You want recognition before you've earned trust. You want mastery before you've endured repetition. That's not how greatness works. Time doesn't bend to pressure, it bends to preparation. Here's the truth. Patience is the filter that separates the committed from the casual. Most people quit not because they can't do it, but because they can't wait. They panic when progress slows. They compare themselves to others. They mistake quiet seasons for wasted time. But listen carefully. Slow doesn't mean stagnant. Silence doesn't mean failure. It means you're in the build-up phase. Every mountain looks still before the avalanche. Every seed looks dead before the bloom. Every disciplined person looks quiet before the breakthrough. Patience is what turns invisible work into visible results. Understand the psychology behind this. When you act out of impatience, you trigger short-term dopamine. It feels like progress, but it's not. It's motion without momentum. It's effort without endurance. That's why you start strong and fade fast. But when you act out of patience, you engage long-term satisfaction, the reward system built for mastery. You don't chase quick validation. You build internal confidence. You learn to delay gratification, which is the foundation of mental toughness. Because discipline isn't doing what feels good. It's doing what's required long after the excitement fades. That's the weapon of the unshaken. While others rush, you prepare. While they react, you rise. Say it again, because that's the code you live by now. When they move fast out of fear, you move slow out of purpose. When they panic in uncertainty, you breathe in patience. When they crumble under delay, you strengthen under pressure. You don't need their timeline. You don't need their validation. You don't need their permission. You need consistency. And that's something only the patient possess. Because patience builds foundation, and foundation builds fortresses. Think about the ocean. Waves crash, winds scream, tides shift, but the ocean doesn't panic. It waits. It moves with rhythm, not reaction. That's how your mind must operate. When chaos hits, don't flinch. When results slow, don't doubt. When others run ahead, don't chase. Hold your position. Strengthen your roots. Because time always reveals who was disciplined and who was desperate. Patience exposes pretenders. It humbles the impulsive. It elevates the prepared. That's why most never reach mastery.
They can't handle the boredom between breakthroughs. But that's where greatness is built, in the long, quiet hours when nothing seems to be working, yet everything inside you is growing. Here's the reality. There's a time to move fast, but there's a season to wait strategically. Patience doesn't mean no action. It means calibrated action. It means you move only when the odds are on your side. It means you play the long game while everyone else burns out in the short game. You build skills, you build endurance, you build stability. So when the opportunity arrives, you don't need to get ready. You are ready. Preparation is patience in motion. That's the mindset of warriors, leaders, and legends. Let me tell you something most people won't. Impatience is ego in disguise. It's your pride telling you that you deserve it faster, that you've done enough, that you've waited long enough. But patience, real patience, kills ego, because it reminds you that the world owes you nothing. You must earn your moment. And that's exactly what the unshaken understand. They're not playing for applause, they're building for permanence. They don't rush results, they refine their readiness. So when others burn out chasing dopamine, you're still standing, still focused, still sharpening. That's how power compounds. Time is the silent amplifier of the disciplined mind. Now let's turn this into action. When you feel the urge to rush, pause. When you want to quit, breathe. When you start to doubt the process, zoom out. Ask yourself, am I being patient or am I being passive? If you're waiting with intention, that's power. If you're waiting with fear, that's weakness. Use time like a sword, not a chain. Cut through distraction. Carve your discipline. Because every moment you stay calm in the storm, you grow stronger than those who panic. And one day, the same people who doubted your pace will fear your precision. So hold steady. Let time do its work. Keep preparing in silence. Because while they rush, you prepare. While they react, you rise. And when the noise dies down, you'll be the one still standing. Not because you were the fastest, but because you were the most unshaken. You've learned patience. You've learned to weaponize stillness. Now let's go deeper, into the heart of control itself.
Every reaction burns energy. Every restraint compounds it. That's not philosophy. That's physics. That's biology. That's mastery. You lose power every time you react. You gain power every time you withhold it. That's the law of energy. Your life runs on energy, not time, not luck, not opportunity. Energy. And you spend most of it reacting. Reacting to words, reacting to comments, reacting to disrespect, reacting to things that don't matter in the long game. Each reaction drains you, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Every unnecessary response is an invisible leak in your power. You get triggered, you lose focus. You argue, you lose clarity. You try to prove, you lose direction. That's how most people die before their time, not physically, but energetically. Exhausted by meaningless reactions. You have a choice. You can burn your energy on noise, or you can store it for purpose. That's the key. Science proves this. When you react emotionally, your nervous system enters a stress response loop, the fight, flight, or freeze state. Your body floods with cortisol and adrenaline. Your attention narrows. Your breathing shortens. Your focus collapses. You think you're fighting back, but you're actually weakening yourself. You think you're winning the argument, but your biology is working against you. Every overreaction is a loss of self-command. But here's the good news. The brain can be rewired. When you practice non-reaction, when you train yourself to stay calm under pressure, your nervous system adapts. You shorten the stress loop. You lower cortisol. You expand awareness. You restore command. That's how you become dangerous, not by reacting faster, but by reacting less. You don't need to meet every insult with fire. You don't need to answer every challenge with noise. You don't need to prove anything to people who operate beneath your discipline. Silence is not weakness, it's precision. It's power held back for a higher purpose. Save your energy for outcomes, not arguments. Because every time you choose restraint over reaction, you're multiplying your future strength. It's like compound interest. Every calm decision adds to your account of composure. Every unnecessary reaction is a withdrawal from your emotional capital. The people who can't control their reactions are slaves to their emotions. The ones who can, they own rooms without saying a word. You've seen it before. The person who doesn't flinch, the one who doesn't rise to bait. They control the tempo. They own the energy of the space. That's not luck, that's deliberate energy management. Let's get practical. When someone provokes you, pause. Don't respond immediately. Notice what's happening inside you. That's the start of mastery, awareness before reaction. Your heartbeat spikes, your breath shortens, your mind rushes to defend. That's the stress loop activating. But you're in control. Breathe deeper, widen your awareness. Feel the urge to react, and don't. In that moment, you've reclaimed the energy others waste. You've broken the loop. You've won without fighting. That's power. Most people think power means dominance, but real power is endurance. It's the ability to conserve energy while others waste theirs trying to provoke you. You don't win by outreacting them. You win by outlasting them. They burn out. You build up. That's how influence works. It compounds through calmness. You don't need to respond to every attack. You don't need to justify every choice. You don't need to explain every silence. Let them wonder. Let them fill the silence with their own insecurity. You stay grounded. Because in the long run, energy wins. The one who preserves it prevails. Think about martial artists. They don't rush every move. They wait. They read. They conserve. Their entire discipline is built on energy economy. Use only what's necessary. The same rule applies to your mind. Don't waste energy trying to convince, argue, or correct everyone. Your calm presence will say more than your words ever could. You don't need their permission to stay silent. You don't need their validation to stay composed. You don't need to match their chaos to prove your control. You simply need to remember, every reaction burns energy. Every restraint compounds it. That's the formula of inner command. Now, let's talk about what happens when you stop reacting. People start to reveal themselves. They show their fears, their impulses, their lack of control. Your calm becomes a mirror. It exposes their instability. That's the hidden advantage of non-reaction. Because when you don't take the bait, the other person loses their leverage. They need your emotional energy to keep their power alive. Starve them of it, and they crumble. Silence disarms the emotional aggressor faster than anger ever could. Composure confuses the manipulator faster than confrontation ever will. Your restraint is your strategy. But understand this, non-reaction isn't the same as indifference. It's not about ignoring everything. It's about choosing your responses. You still act. You still decide. You still speak, but only when it matters. That's the discipline most people lack. They confuse movement with effectiveness. They confuse reaction with action. Don't. A commander doesn't rush into every battle. He studies the terrain. He waits for alignment. He saves his resources for the decisive strike. That's how you must operate, in mind, in energy, in emotion. Save your energy for outcomes, not arguments. Because you can't build your empire while you're busy defending your ego. Here's the deeper truth. Energy follows attention. Whatever you react to grows. Whatever you ignore withers. So stop feeding distractions. Stop watering conflict. Stop energizing people who drain your focus. Direct your energy inward.
to discipline, purpose, mastery. Channel it into your craft, your growth, your silence. Because that's where power compounds quietly. You have a choice every day, to waste energy or to wield it, to react or to rise, to fight for validation or to build for vision. Choose calm, choose focus, choose restraint. That's not weakness, that's controlled intensity. And over time, that control becomes charisma. People feel it before you speak. That's why silence commands respect. It carries the weight of stored energy. So remember, every reaction burns energy. Every restraint compounds it. Save your energy for outcomes, not arguments. Save your focus for growth, not gossip. Save your calm for challenges that truly test you. Because the one who controls his energy controls his life. And when you master that, you don't just survive chaos, you direct it. You've learned how to conserve your inner fire. Now it's time to learn how to channel that fire into forward motion.
Command is quiet. Power is calm. This is the summit of restraint, when your very presence speaks louder than your words ever could. You've climbed through control, through silence, through emotional discipline, through patience. Now you arrive here, command presence, the state where people feel your authority before you move, before you speak, before you act. That's not mysticism. That's the energy of someone who has mastered restraint. Presence is not posture. It's not your clothes, your title, or your tone. Presence is your energy under command. It's the gravity you carry into every space. It's the silence that follows when you enter a room, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. You've stopped reacting. You've stopped over-explaining. You've stopped chasing validation. Now the world adjusts to your pace, your energy, your silence. That's the final stage of power, not control over others, but control so absolute over yourself that others can't help but feel it. Command presence is built, not born. It's forged through restraint, moment by moment, choice by choice. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you build it. Every time you let silence speak instead of emotion, you reinforce it. Every time you act without needing applause, you strengthen it. Command presence is the product of 1,000 invisible victories. Victories no one saw, no one praised. But each one shaped you into someone who doesn't need to prove, only to be. Think of the great leaders. Marcus Aurelius, calm amidst political storms. Nelson Mandela, composed after 27 years of imprisonment. A Navy SEAL commander standing silent before giving an order. A monk who radiates peace without a word. Different worlds, same principle, stillness commands. Because people can sense what you've conquered inside yourself. They can feel the weight of your discipline. They know instinctively you won't be shaken. You have a choice, to react like everyone else or to embody stillness that unsettles the noise. That's the key. When your emotions obey you, your energy becomes magnetic. You no longer enter a room trying to be noticed. Your restraint does the talking. The insecure try to fill space with sound. The powerful fill it with silence. You don't need to raise your voice to dominate. You don't need to prove your strength. Your calmness proves it for you. People confuse stillness with softness, but stillness is strength stabilized. It's a sword sheathed, not surrendered. It's aggression transformed into awareness. That's why you must remember, command is quiet, power is calm. Let's get practical. How do you develop command presence in your daily life? First, regulate your breathing. Your breath is your anchor. Slow breathing signals your nervous system, I'm in control. You'll notice others unconsciously mirror your calm. Second, speak less but mean every word. Each word should carry weight. Cut out filler,
Cut out justification. Cut out emotional leakage. You don't speak to impress. You speak to direct. And when you do, people listen because your words are rare and deliberate. Third, maintain deliberate posture. Your body communicates before your mouth does. Stand grounded. Move slowly. Never fidget. Stillness signals certainty. Certainty attracts respect. Fourth, stop explaining yourself. Every extra word drains authority. You don't owe reasons for discipline, silence, or focus. You act from clarity, not from fear of misunderstanding. That's the key. Command presence doesn't beg to be understood. It simply is. When you master this, your energy begins to do the work for you. In business, you don't have to outtalk the room. In relationships, you don't have to overprove your loyalty. In leadership, you don't have to shout to be obeyed. You become the still point in a spinning world. You become the calm in chaos, and that calm becomes contagious. That's how great tacticians, monks, and CEOs alike shape environments, not through noise, but through presence. Your stillness becomes a command. Your restraint becomes strategy. Your silence becomes law. Understand this. Presence is not performance. It's not acting calm. It's being calm. And that can't be faked. You can't fake years of internal work. You can't fake peace earned through self-control. You can't fake mastery of your reactions. Presence exposes truth. You either have it or you don't. And if you don't, you can build it through restraint, repetition, and relentless self-command. You have a choice. You can chase validation like everyone else, or you can command attention by needing nothing. That's the highest form of power, to move through life with nothing to prove, nothing to defend, nothing to chase. Think of this like energy conservation at the highest level. When you're reactive, your energy scatters outward through arguments, defenses, insecurity. When you're commanding, your energy coils inward, dense, focused, impenetrable. That's why calm people feel powerful. They've condensed their energy. They've mastered the art of not wasting it. And the world feels it. You walk into a room and others sense your self-control. They adjust their tone. They lower their volume. They match your energy without even knowing why. That's not manipulation. That's mastery. Because your restraint radiates strength. Your silence becomes influence. Command presence also means emotional neutrality. You're not pulled by praise. You're not shaken by criticism. You don't rise to anger, and you don't sink into approval addiction. That's how you become unshakable. Because your worth doesn't fluctuate with their opinions. It's anchored in your discipline. You have a choice. React to their emotions or remain the standard. Be the stillness others lean toward when they fall apart. Be the grounded presence that stabilizes chaos. Be the quiet in the storm. That's not just strength, that's leadership. Command presence isn't about dominance, it's about alignment. Every part of you, thought, breath, action, moving in one direction. No wasted energy, no wasted words, no wasted motion. That's why true power feels simple. It's focused, direct, minimal. And the more you simplify your energy, the stronger it becomes. You don't need more noise. You need more precision. You don't need more people to follow you. You need more mastery of yourself. Because the man who commands himself commands the world. Remember this. Command is quiet. Power is calm. You don't need their permission to lead. You don't need their recognition to rise. You don't need their applause to know your worth. You've moved beyond reaction. You've moved beyond ego. Now you embody control. Your silence speaks louder than anger. Your patience intimidates faster than aggression. Your calm changes the temperature of every room you walk into. That's presence. That's command. That's power. You've completed the cycle of restraint. You've turned emotion into energy, reaction into direction, silence into strength. Now you command. Not through fear, not through volume, through calm, centered, disciplined presence. You've learned to control yourself, and that means you now control your world. That's the final stage of restraint. That's the true power of command. And with that, you've arrived at the highest form of mastery, the power to shape reality without needing to shout at it. This is your next chapter, not in this book, but in life. Live with restraint, move with intention, lead with silence, and let your calm become your command.
Power was never about force. It was about control. You've learned that silence can be louder than shouting, that waiting can be more powerful than reacting, that patience can break opponents faster than rage. Every moment you feel the urge to react, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads to chaos, the other to command. Choose command, choose restraint, because the one who controls themselves eventually controls everything. Don't prove your strength, embody it. Don't react to noise, outlast it. From this moment forward, move like a commander of your own mind. Power is not in reaction. Power is in restraint. Now, go practice it.